Hi, how's it going? My name is Gary Donnelly, the author of Blood Will Be Born, and you're very welcome to the next installment in Read as a Writer. Today, I'm going to be starting off by talking about beginnings. As my cousin Jim likes to say, a good start is a job half done, and never was it truer than whenever you're writing stories and establishing the opening pages of a novel. So, we can talk about these matters in terms of prologues or introductions, and I'm not really inclined to start discussing the intricacies or the theories about the differences between these things. But I think it's safe to say that what does a good prologue and a good introduction have in common? It establishes a little bit of background for the reader. It sort of superpowers the plot in a way that allows the reader to get necessary elements of background detail in place. But I would also say it does a little bit more than those practical things. It actually can also create a necessary sort of voice for the reader to hear initially, and also to create an atmosphere, a set of expectations about the book and the fuller story. And actually, if you do it skillfully enough, to establish themes within your work, which are going to emerge and probably knit together the whole of the work as a whole. So essentially, it couldn't be any more important, really, than getting the start of your book right. I think also from a sort of practical perspective, folks, those of us who are in the business of approaching that point, perhaps, where you've done the amazing job of putting 60 to 80,000 words together, one after the other, and fair play to you if you've ever tried it and if you've achieved it. Um, you know, Once it gets to the top of an agent's slush pile, be aware that the as well as the synopsis that you are going to have to be able to put skillfully together, the first pages are vital. Um, Connor Montague, a guy that I studied under for a short period of time down in the City Lit in London, I remember he brilliantly said, can you tell a good book or a bad book from the first 10 or 15 pages? And the universal answer was yes, of course we can. We couldn't quite put our finger on why, but he said, well, you can go even further. You'll know it from the very first page, and I would even suggest to you, you'll know it from the first paragraph. So it's vital for you, my dear listener, to make sure that you're on the right side of that. And you can do an awful lot worse than actually looking at where it's been done in a quality way, and and using some of the lessons as a reader to empower yourself as a writer. So how are we going to do this? Let's talk a little bit about voice, the establishment of a voice, as it were, by the author. Let's talk about the presentation of themes and background, setup of expectations. I'll try and run through these in a fairly quick fire way and illustrate as best I can. Let's start off with Milkman by Anna Burns. Okay. Now, obviously, incredibly well known, but you listen to this opening line, and you're absolutely immersed in where you're going, and you know exactly within the first paragraph or so, although punctuation is at a minimum, what you're going to be getting. Here it goes. The day somebody McSomebody put a gun to my breast and called me a cat and threatened to shoot me was the same day the milkman died. He had been shot by one of the state hit squads, and I did not care about the shooting of this man. Others did care, though, and some were those who, in the parlance, knew me to see but not to speak to, and I was being talked about because there was a rumour started by them, or more likely by first brother-in-law, that I had been having an affair with this milkman, and that I was 18 and he was 41. Now, I cannot help but hear the voice of my sisters in terms of that free flowing sort of movement of language. And it's all there. It's all there within the opening two sentences in terms of the themes, the importances, and the tensions that are going to be visited. All right, here comes another one. This one is by another Belfast author, Richard O'Rourke, Northern Heist. I've done a wee review on this previously. But, here we go. Opening line. They say lazy bonitis is in the blood. It isn't. in James Ructions O'Hare's blood. Not when it comes to robbing banks. You know what you're in for, and you've most importantly got something there which is going to make you want to continue reading. Okay, let's look at Wolf Hall, another Booker Prize winner there, Hillary Mantel. Mantel, and I paraphrase, I think said, when she starts, she does it with a flourish and a bit of panache, but she usually goes back and rewrites the beginning. And look at the girth on that book. There's an awful lot there, but what you're getting there in the first sort of paragraph or so is unmistakably clear-cut, directional. Not only do we get a voice, but we get all of the themes of violence, of suffering, of persistence, and everything that's really going to recur within this novel. So now I get up, failed, dazed, silent. He has fallen, knocked full length on the cobbles of the yard. His head turns sideways, his eyes are turned towards the gate, as if someone might arrive to help him out. One blow, properly placed, could kill him now. Blood from the gash on his head, which was his father's first effort, is trickling across his face. Could go on, but it's all there. This man is a survivor. This man has had to protect himself. This man has got to be tougher than all that the world will throw at him. And of course, without spoiling it for you, it transpires that he very much is. Right, let's have a wee look into the Kindle now for exactly the same business. This one, No Country for Old Men by Cormac McCarthy. Right, let's think about voice. You heard Anna Burns, and I lapsed into a sort of Belfast teenage girl, babbling almost. But this is not what McCarthy asks of us, and it's not what you can do. You have to fall in with his world, and he's suddenly in your brain. I sent one boy to the gas chamber at Huntsville, one and one only, my arrest and my testimony. I went up there and visited him 2 or 3 times, 3 times. I don't even need to elaborate on that. You want to read on, you know what you're getting, and that's much more within the context of a prologue really than just a simple introduction. And he uses it very, very effectively for those reasons. Okay, where have we gone? Where am I going to go next? Let's have a little look. Let's think a little bit more about the establishment of place and the establishment of sort of direction, expectation, atmosphere. This is this is Fatherland, of course, by Robert Harris. It needs really no introduction, but pardon the pun. Let's have a look at his first opening chapter. Thick cloud had pressed down on Berlin all night, and now it was lingering into what passed for the morning. On the city's western outskirts, plumes of rain drifted across the surface of Lake Havel like smoke. Sky and water merged into a sheet of grey, broken only by the dark line of the opposite bank. Nothing stirred. No lights showed. And if there's a quintessential way of capturing what it's like if Hitler had a one and Nazi Germany becomes a reality, he does it in one. Now, recently, I picked up this little one here, The Coffin Path. It's by Katherine Clements. Very, very nice opener. Very nice opener. Once again, just listen to this. You're going to get it instantly. I was born with blood on my hands. I killed my mother on the 22nd of August in the year 1642. The day the first King Charles turned traitor and chose a battlefield over a throne. She was not murdered by musket, shot or slaughtered by steel blade, as we were, so many, during those years of war. Hers was a woman's fate. She died in blood, the blood that bore me in on its tide. I particularly love that. And, as an opening, the little intro chapter actually reminds me similarly of the one that starts my book, Blood Will Be Born, which just shows you that, some of the themes, some of the tensions are shared between readers, but they're always unique when they're written with honesty. Okay, we're one more from the Kindle here before I go to my final one. Let's think a little bit this one. This is by a fantastic Northern Irish writer, Stuart Neville. He's from Armagh, and I haven't really picked him up in the past, and this is a lovely opportunity for me to do so. This is from The Final Silence, a book he wrote about 7 or 8 years ago, which is just a cracker. Do have a read. Here we go. Raymond Drew wanted to die on the towpath. Even if there was no sun, no blue sky to die beneath, he wanted it to be by the river. He didn't care if the ground was sodden with rainfall as he collapsed. If he could manage it, he'd fall dead into the water. At least that way he could be sure. To survive and be brought to a hospital was unthinkable. They would contact his family, such as it was, and his sister Ida would go to his house, and the things she would find there. He should have destroyed them, but he couldn't. He was not strong enough to take that action and endure the consequences. So well crafted. And if you've read that book, you'll understand exactly why everything within those first 2 paragraphs effectively encapsulates the novel as a whole. But he hooks you in, and you'd be an absolute sort of mad person to put it down. All right, last one today. I've touched on this before. This is by a good mate of mine, Paul Sinclair. It's called Bay of Killers. It's actually his second novel. His first one was one called Fatal Consequences. Now I've done a sort of a root and branch review of this before, and I'm very biased in the sense that I really enjoyed it, and I've just got the privilege of being his mate as well. What I particularly like about this one is the little preface, the little intro that he does, because I think it does all of the stuff that I've talked about and does it extraordinarily effectively. I'll let you hear it and I'll let you understand it. It was a dank, dreary night in the ancient port of Genoa. The soft, drizzling rain dripped from the rooftops of the modern office blocks and iconic Renaissance buildings that bordered the marina, forming little puddles on the wide walkways. Patches of amber light from the street lamps glistened on the wet concrete as 2 pairs of shiny black shoes splashed their way past the Galleon Neptune, Roman Polanski's beautifully crafted pirate ship. Crossing the finger-like shadows cast by a tall, solitary palm tree, the 2 figures advanced stealthily towards the piazza ahead. The mushy drone of passing traffic on the ugly flyover was above, masked the sound of their footsteps. The body hit the flagstones with a heavy thud a few seconds later, landing directly beneath the windows of a 13th century Gothic palace, in full view of the harbour. The man was still alive when he fell, but only just. His head angled awkwardly to one side, eyes staring widely, limbs twitching, his body splayed like a bendy toy. 2 silhouetted shapes bent over the crumpled figure, their backs to the security lights. The twitching ceased. The taller shape felt for a pulse. The other checked that the coast was clear. Once satisfied the man was dead, the watcher signalled to someone on a 3rd floor window. The 2 figures walked swiftly towards a medieval archway and disappeared into the night. It's all there. All of the intrigue, all of the mystery, the threat and promise of violence, the mixture of antiquity and modernity. Sterling job, great opener from Paul. And I'd recommend it strongly. I hope you found this interesting. I hope you found it helpful. Feedback, comments, always welcome. And do keep in touch, and hope to be in touch soon as well. Bye.